Ready to roll. Turn left. When possible, make a U-turn. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left.
Good evening, everyone. This is my first drive. Oh, this is Johnson Path with the
Keep left,
first drive
and
with
then
the
turn
limited packages in the Mack Anthem.
turn left.
I'm so excited to drive this. Beginning with Sacramento is the California State Capital, and this is where I bought it. Where I bought it this morning, and instead of driving the old model oval, which is so when I get to first stop we're gonna begin with Oklahoma City,
Left.
and from Sacramento, and other than that, and let's get to driving, folks, and it'll be a great drive because
and then exit right. Exit right. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Keep right. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. At the roundabout, take the second exit. Exit now. Go straight on. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Finally, we are here. Drive safe. Get ready to turn left. Turn left. Go straight on. At the roundabout, take the second exit. Exit now. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Keep right. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left. keep right, and then exit right. Exit right. find, I'll find a new route. Go straight on. Recomputing. Turn left. Go straight on. Get ready to turn left. Turn left.
for 12 counties. I know y'all are doing what you can, but what does that mean for Houston?
Councilmember Abby Kamen argues the company has misused its resources over the past decade.
I do believe that given everything Houston has gone through, that Houstonians deserve a refund on some of this.
With Centerpoint facing more than $1.5 billion in costs from the derecho and barrel, the company plans to impose a storm restoration charge on customers, according to a filing with the SEC. Dominic Anthony Walsh, News 88.7.
Police are warning about a scam targeting elderly Houstonians. They say an 80-year-old woman was robbed after she was told her bank was hacked and she needed to withdraw her money and put it in a cryptocurrency kiosk. HPD Detective Jeff Breeden.
It's a crime of opportunity, essentially, that they believe that could be a large sum of money, and it ends up being a large sum of money. It's a total of $19,000, which they still.
Breeden says the scammers then told the woman to withdraw more money, and she wound up losing a total of about $76,000. Video of the suspects is available on HPD's social media. Texas drivers are paying less for gas again this week. The statewide average is $2.80 a gallon. That's 11 cents less than last week. Here in Houston, the average is also $2.80, and that's a 9-cent drop. Baseball at Minute Maid Park this afternoon. The Astros defeated the Oakland A's 6-3. It should be mostly clear tonight. We're expecting an overnight low around 71 degrees. Sunny skies in the forecast tomorrow. High for the day near 93. I'm Gilda Lauder, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Juana Summers. In Southern California, 3 large wildfires are challenging residents and first responders. Cooling temperatures are helping firefighters after a blistering triple-digit heat wave. But the fires have already burned more than 100,000 acres, forced tens of thousands to evacuate, and destroyed dozens of structures. Governor Gavin Newsom Wednesday declared a state of emergency in Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties. Joining us now is reporter Jacob Margolis with member station LAist in Los Angeles. Jacob, welcome.
Go straight on.
Thanks for having me.
So, Jacob, the largest of these 3 blazes, that's the Bridge Fire, started last weekend in the Angeles National Forest, just about 30 miles east of downtown LA. Tell us what the latest is there.
Yeah, the fire's already at 51,000 acres. It's 0% contained. And what's wild about it is that in these huge mountains that you see in the background of all the photos of downtown Los Angeles, the fire has actually traversed that mountain range from about city to desert in a very short period of time. And it's been driven by the extreme heat you mentioned. We've also seen gusty winds. The steep terrain makes it tough to fight, and a lot of thick brush that hasn't burned in 20 plus years. All of that's resulted in really extreme fire behavior that's been hard to predict and hard to control, like a couple of nights ago when the fire showed up in Wrightwood, which is a mountain community. It showed up very fast, and people had to flee as the sky glowed orange. Here's resident Novell Carter at a Red Cross evacuation center in Pomona.
I not just lost my home, I lost my business. I had an Airbnb and a spa in Wrightwood, California, and I lost all of that.
Yes, so more than 30 structures have been destroyed, but the full extent of the damage won't be known until the fires abate.
And there are 2 other wildfires nearby also threatening homes and businesses. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, it's this kind of triangle of hell that's going on. There's a line fire that's threatening mountain communities in the San Bernardinos. The Big Bear area appears to be a result of arson, and a suspect has been arrested. And then there's the airport fire, which is, again, about 30 more miles away, threatening Orange and Riverside counties, inadvertently started by public works crews that were trying to prevent wildfires, sparking it with heavy equipment. The good news is the drop in temperatures, maybe a rise in humidity, could help slow the pace of some of these fires and give firefighters a fighting chance.
I mean, Jacob, listening to you talk about this, Southern California is really getting hit hard here with these 3 major wildfires within 30 miles of each other in such a heavily populated area. I have to imagine this is just really tough for firefighters.
Yeah, I mean, resources stretched thin. 3 major fires in an area with a lot of people. Everyone wants resources. And on top of that, firefighters are exhausted. Some of them are already on forced leave right now because later in the season. And in the coming days, we might see resources come in from further away, but people are tied up on other fires too. All that said, even if, we need more bodies on the fires, you can't just throw them at the fire and expect them to stop, especially with this chaotic fire behavior, and especially if it's unsafe for firefighters to be out there.
We're just in mid-September. Wildfire season in the West has only gotten longer in recent years. In a sentence or two, just how worried are fire officials for the months ahead?
I'm worried. Santa Ana wind season's right around the corner, and those fires are bad.
Reporter Jacob Margolis with member station LAist. Thank you.
Thanks.
The nation's largest police department has a new commissioner after federal authorities launched an investigation into its top cop. Edward Caban stepped down as head of the New York City Police Department earlier today. WNYC's Bahar Ostadan joins us from Manhattan. Hi there.
Hi.
What happened today?
Like you said, our police commissioner, Edward Caban, resigned just a week after federal authorities seized his cell phone in an ongoing investigation. Caban was the first Latino head of the NYPD, which has 36,000 officers. He said in an email today that news of the investigation became distracting and, quote, for the good of the city and the police department, he'd made the difficult decision to resign. An hour after that, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams took the stage and appointed an interim police commissioner. Here's what he had to say at a news conference.
I was as surprised as you to learn of these inquiries, and I take them extremely seriously. I spent more than 20 years in law enforcement, and so every member of the administration knows my expectations that we must follow the law.
And this is just the latest after a lot of bad news. What is going on? Bad news for Adams and his inner circle anyway. Tell us what's happening.
That's right, Ari. We're talking about 4 federal investigations here. The IRS is looking into the police commissioner's twin brother's business as a nightlife consultant. The feds took phones from him, his twin brother, his chief of staff, and 3 other police officials last week. Also last week, the FBI raided the homes of several people inside Adams's inner circle. That was the city's deputy mayor for public safety, his brother, who's also the city's school chancellor, and that man's partner, who's the city's first deputy mayor.
Well, what did policing in New York City look like under Caban?
It's really been about cracking down on low-level crimes, like people sneaking onto the subway without paying for their ticket, drinking in public, and also stop and frisk. The NYPD has stopped tens of thousands of New Yorkers in the last couple of years. Just 5% of those pedestrians stopped were white. Caban also was tasked with one of Adams's main campaign promises to the city, and that was make the subways safer following the pandemic. Now, on the accountability front, he's been lighter on discipline against officers than his predecessors, and frankly, not so great with the press.
Well, who's the new guy?
His name's Thomas Donlan. Came as a surprise to a lot of people I talked to today, but really is a smart political move for Adams. He appointed a former FBI official as the FBI investigates his own inner circle. It's rare to appoint a non-cop as the city's top cop, so to speak. Donlan worked as chief of the FBI's National Threat Center. He was also New York's director for the Office of Homeland Security, and he also ran the FBI NYPD Joint Terrorism Task Force.
What's the reaction been in New York?
All eyes are really on Adams, who's been having a rough go in recent months. He's also looking ahead to the mayoral election next year. I spoke to a couple rank-and-file police officers who said it's been a blow to morale for them to have an external figure sort of come in and take charge of the department. Only a couple times has that happened in history, having a non-cop be appointed to the role. Also, 3 New York City council members have been calling for Caban's resignation leading up to today. So we'll sort of have to wait and see how the remainder of these investigations pan out.
It's WNYC's Bahar Ostadan. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Each week, a well-known guest draws a card from our wild card deck and answers a big question about their life. Grammy-winning artist Casey Musgraves bucks a lot of country music conventions. Sure, she writes beautiful songs about love and heartbreak, but she also writes about smoking pot and queer relationships. Musgraves released her newest album, Deeper Well, earlier this year, and she talked to host Rachel Martin about growing up in small-town Texas and how leaving home opened up her mind.
Pick a card. 1 through 3.
Let's go for 2.
2. Was there a bedrock truth in your life that you came to find out wasn't true?
Growing up, the acceptance of people in the queer community was kind of non-existent where I grew up. I could count on one hand the amount of times I encountered an openly gay person. That's not to say that I encountered people who were closeted, but there was a very kind of typically a majority one-way view of it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, that kind of like mentality. And so I kind of like left Texas with sort of this kind of idea that, well, people choose to be that way. And when I moved to Nashville, I started making friends in that community. And I actually had a boyfriend at the time who did me a huge favor. He was from a completely different upbringing than me. He was like from a liberal family, like upstate New York, and he had a ton of gay friends. And he just sat me down one day and like we had a real hard and honest conversation about it. And he was like, listen, like you do not have the right perspective on this. Like, and he like, I don't know, he just helped me completely open up my eyes and see. And I was just like, damn, I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to get out of where I came from and to have my eyes and my heart open to this really wonderful group of people. And they've made me way more well-rounded.
I mean, it's not like central to your music, but you do talk about queer relationships, just acknowledge queer people in your art. I mean, that's clearly intentional. Do you feel sort of an obligation to use your platform that way?
Well, one of the best compliments that I've ever received in terms of my music and who I am in the world, it's when occasionally people come up to me and say, hey, I grew up in a really small town like you did, and I've always loved country music, but I've never felt invited to that party. Honestly, it really wasn't about ever pushing buttons, ever. It just was me kind of observing what was happening around me and, doing my job as a songwriter to put that in the form of a song. And like, to me, country music is always about real people, real stories, and why wouldn't it continue to evolve?
That's musician Casey Musgraves talking with NPR's Rachel Martin. To hear more from that conversation, follow the Wildcard podcast.
It's coming up on 6:18 on All Things Considered on your NPR station. News hit 80 Fahrenheit, 31 Celsius right now here at the UH campus. I'm David Pittman. Still have the problem heading in on the Katy Freeway eastbound side of I-10 at the West Sam. Wrecking a couple of right lanes, and you're going to be slow from Eldridge.
PBS NewsHour.
Now more than ever, you need news you can trust. For nearly 50 years, millions have turned to PBS NewsHour for the solid, reliable reporting that has made NewsHour the most objective and credible news program on television. Unbiased, in-depth news that delivers substance over sensationalism, elections, conflict, climate. Trust a news source that cuts through the noise with news that matters. Fair, thoughtful coverage of the events that impact our lives.
PBS NewsHour, weeknights at 6 on Houston Public Media TV 8.
Hi, I'm Camille Nelson, your member relations specialist. If you are a monthly Always member and need to update your donation payment method, you can go online to houstonpublicmedia.org/update. Our easy online form will ensure that your information remains secure. Also, consider making the switch to EFT. You will help lower our processing cost, which puts more funding into the programming you love, trust, and rely on. Thank you.
Shame might work as a deterrent, but it also affects self-esteem deeply and can backfire as a tool.
The more we're sort of mired in our wrongness, the more exhausted we are and the less power we have to affect change.
How shame is used as a weapon and how to become shame resilient. That's next time on Think.
And we'll have that for you tonight at 10 on News 88.7.
Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com. Support comes from Central Market, celebrating 30 years as a culinary destination in Texas with limited edition commemorative products, sampling events, and visiting chefs. Details at centralmarket.com.
We'll have a dead-on average overnight low of 72 and a dead-on average high of 91 tomorrow, and that pattern will persist through the weekend and through much of next week as well. Again, right now it's 88 at 620.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Visit St. Pete Clearwater, Florida, where fall color seekers can find miles of sugary white sand beaches and emerald green Gulf waters, as well as fiery red, orange, and yellow sunsets. More at visitspc.com. And from Bank of America, offering access to resources and digital tools designed to help local to global companies make moves for their businesses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/banking for business. This is NPR.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Juana Summers.
And I'm Ari Shapiro. Today, the city of Springfield, Ohio, evacuated its city hall, a school, and other locations after officials there received a bomb threat. This came after unfounded rumors on social media about Haitians who live in the community kidnapping and consuming pets. Those rumors have been propagated by former President Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. To be clear, there is no proven connection between their statements and the threat. Reporter Catherine Mobley from member station WYSO has been following the story. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, how are you doing, Ari?
All right, you attended the press conference where officials spoke about the bomb threats. What did they say?
Local officials would not answer questions directly regarding this morning's bomb threat. The city's police chief did read a statement indicating her office as well as Clark County deputies are working with area FBI agents, analyzing the email, trying to figure out its origin. Also this morning, as you said, all municipal offices, city, county, and state offices were evacuated and closed. Tomorrow morning, however, Springfield offices will reopen with limited hours beginning at 9 a.m.
You've been talking to people in Springfield all week. What have Haitians there had to say about the rumors?
They think they are absolutely baseless. I've spoken with a number of Haitians. Some relocated to Springfield following family. Others responded to the city calling for people to work in new various manufacturing jobs in the area. Others are actually business owners, and they said they want to contribute to Springfield's economy. I spoke with Bianca Daniel, who runs a commercial beauty store in Springfield. She says her primary audience are African Americans, and she's concerned these baseless rumors of Haitians stealing and eating pets will cause people to not want to patronize her business. She calls the rumors ridiculous.
People that came to the U.S. know pets or like children, all Asians know that. So I really don't think any Asian would have done something like that.
Daniel also says she has a 6-year-old daughter who attends first grade at one of the area elementary schools, and she is concerned about her daughter and other Haitian students being bullied in school because of these rumors.
Yeah. Well, community and religious leaders also held a press conference this afternoon. What did you hear from them?
They represented churches, nonprofits, such as members of the Nehemiah Foundation, the Haitian Community Help and Support Center, Central Christian Church, and Covenant Presbyterian Church. They actually all gathered outside of Covenant, and they emphasized while Springfield is a small city of just under 60,000, and it does have its challenges, they said overall people work together and it's a nice place to live. The president of the Springfield chapter of NAACP is Denise Williams. She thinks former President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance both owe the community an apology for spreading these baseless rumors about their Haitian communities.
We are already on edge, but with the comments from our government has made it worse. We need peace in our community. It is time to embrace each other. It is time to dispel the rumors.
Also, because of the influx of the Haitians, it has put a strain on services. Governor Mike DeWine has just committed $2.5 million towards expanding primary care access for everyone who lives in Springfield, also for more translation services and to provide driver education classes to the Haitian community.
That's reporter Catherine Mobley of WYSO in Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you.
They've been called fake electors. In 2020, they got together in 7 states where former President Donald Trump lost the popular vote. They signed certificates that became part of a scheme to reverse Trump's defeat. Now, 14 of those pro-Trump electors are back. NPR's voting rights correspondent Hansi Luong reports on how that's raising concerns for this year's election.
Those 14 returning pro-Trump electors are mainly current or former Republican leaders in swing states.
I'm not surprised.
Rebecca Green is an associate professor at William & Mary Law School.
The decision over who the electors are is a decision made by the political parties.
And the GOP of Michigan and Nevada have chosen Republicans who have been criminally charged with felony counts related to sending false certificates to Congress that claim Trump won their state's electoral votes in 2020. In Michigan, those Republicans have pleaded not guilty, and the charges in Nevada have been thrown out by a judge who says the prosecutors picked the wrong venue for the case. Still, Green says these charges sent a strong signal to this year's electors.
Given that there have been prosecutions of electors for forgery and conspiracy, I would think that people in that position would think twice.
David Coleman is an attorney for one of the indicted Republicans in Michigan, Hank Choate, who in 2020, Coleman says, was relying on legal advice from GOP attorneys when he signed the second page of a certificate without reading the first.
Should these electors have read the document and all of that? I'm not going to disagree with that. But the reality, that's not what they're charged with. They're charged with a crime for having intent knowingly to defraud.
This year, Coleman says, if Vice President Harris is certified as the winner of Michigan's popular vote over Trump,
and there's another attempt to try to get the electors to sign something, you can bet I will be involved in that and will be giving appropriate advice and counsel to my client. I'll just leave it at that.
In Pennsylvania and New Mexico, pro-Trump electors in 2020 signed certificates with caveats and said those documents would only be used if a court overturned their state's election results. Several of those Republicans are back this year, and so far, none of them, including Ash Kare, Pennsylvania, have been charged. When you heard about those charges in Michigan and Nevada, did anything cross your mind?
Well, what crossed our mind is that we were smart. They screwed up. They should have put the same caveat in like we did.
Andy Riley says they signed the certificate because of a legal fight over Pennsylvania's ballots, which, at the time, many legal experts saw to be going nowhere. Riley, who's an attorney, says he wanted to be a potential elector again this year because
I know sometimes in the heat of a campaign, people can get fervent and they can, cross the line. And I'm going to make sure that we do everything to preserve, if it's legal, the rights of the candidate, but without doing anything that I think would violate the law or the Constitution like I did the last time.
There's a big difference between did you violate a criminal law and did you do the right thing?
Mary McCord is a former Justice Department official who now teaches at Georgetown University Law Center. She helped bring a civil lawsuit in Wisconsin that led to a settlement agreement that bans unauthorized pro-Trump electors from backing Trump again. At the federal level, McCord points to changes to the law about the counting of electoral votes in Congress. She says they've made it harder for Trump's allies to try to overturn the election results again if he loses. For example, the law now requires 1/5 of both the U.S. House and Senate to object to a state's electoral votes, instead of just one representative and one senator.
It certainly raises the bar, but, it's not an impossible threshold to meet.
Especially, McCord warns, if in this age of disinformation, there's a false narrative about election fraud. Hansi Luong, NPR News.
At 6:29, you've been listening to All Things Considered on your NPR station. News Hit 87. Marketplace is 1 minute away.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Rice University's Master of Liberal Studies, a flexible degree taught by Rice faculty that balances life and learning for working adults. More at gls.rice.edu.
Support comes from Comcast Business. From Main Street to Wall Street, Comcast Business provides business solutions ranging from cybersecurity solutions to round-the-clock partnership, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply.
Support comes from the Near Northwest Management District with new commercial construction, more than 350 acres of green space, parks, and sports complex. More information at nnmd.org. At the intersection of innovation.
Support comes from Baker Ripley, continually serving the community for over 117 years to keep the greater Houston region a place of opportunity for everyone. More details are available at bakerripley.org.
On the Katy Freeway heading in, eastbound I-10, still have the wreck at the West Sam in the two right lanes. You're into the 15-minute trip from Eldridge. It's 6:30.
Marketplace is supported by You.com, using AI to power workplace productivity. AI agents that help with research, multi-step problem solving, and content creation. YOU.com.
On the program today, we'll talk about you, and then we'll talk about me. Something a little different. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Clear Channel Outdoor, offering a nationwide network of billboards and data solutions that help businesses build brand awareness and influence consumer behavior. Billboardsforbusiness.com.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Risnell. It is Thursday today, the 12th of September. Good as always to have you along, everybody. We are going to start today with a couple of data points, a calendar item, and then a couple of minutes on you. What's on your mind, what you're worried about, and why it matters. Data point number one is inflation at the wholesale level in the form of the Producer Price Index, released to us this morning by the Labor Department. Producer prices up 0.2% month on month, exactly what everybody had been guessing, up 1.7% year on year. So, pretty good. Certainly nothing to change the Federal Reserve's mind about a cut in interest rates when they meet next week. Data point number two. First-time claims for unemployment benefits back in the spotlight since we've all gotten just a tad more worried about the labor market. They were up just a bit. Those first-time claims were 230,000 of them. Also, pretty good. The calendar item is the fresh read we're going to get on the psyche of the American consumer tomorrow, the University of Michigan's latest indices of consumer sentiment. There has been, on that front, our collective mood that is, some sobering news lately. Ally Financial reported a couple of days ago that its borrowers are struggling with higher inflation and a cooling labor market. A new report from Deloitte says holiday sales are going to grow at their slowest rate in 6 years, thanks in part to rising credit card debt. So, Marketplace's Justin Ho gets us going with the aforementioned couple of minutes on what is weighing on the U.S. consumer right now.
Consumer credit has been rising pretty consistently over the last year, according to the Federal Reserve. Brian McCarthy with Deloitte's retail and consulting practice says he's been keeping track of credit card debt, and the delinquency rate is starting to look a little concerning.
This has recently hit about 10.9%, which is the highest we've seen in 12 years for credit cards.
McCarthy says it's important to put that number into context. Credit card debt is a pretty small fraction of consumer debt overall. But he says there are other signs that people are feeling overextended.
Personal savings has also been something we've been tracking. We're seeing that decrease a bit.
This week, Ally Financial said that some of its customers are struggling with their auto loans. Steve Bigger, a bank analyst at Argus Research, says borrowers are having to deal with high prices.
Particularly at the low to mid income levels, inflation has really impacted that cohort.
On the other hand, Bigger says lenders in general are still feeling fairly comfortable about the economy.
If you have a job, if unemployment is low, or if you lose a job and can replace it fairly easily, you will stay current on your bills.
But we're already seeing evidence that the labor market is cooling down, says Kathy Bosjancic, chief economist at Nationwide.
What the consumer is facing is a moderation in labor demand and also a moderation in wage growth.
And that means consumers are probably going to keep feeling stretched.
That just puts the consumer in a period where they are going to be more cautious with their spending.
But Boss Jancic says people will keep shopping if they can find sales or discounts. I'm Justin Ho for Marketplace.
On Wall Street today, I gotta tell you, it's kind of a parlor game in the markets right now. Is the Federal Reserve going to cut interest rates 1/4 of a percentage point or 1/2? We're not going to know till Wednesday. Details, numbers, y'all know the drill. Of the many things that are being discussed macroeconomically right now, recession is not one of them. It's not one of them yet, I should say, because there is going to be a recession at some point. That's why the business cycle is called a cycle, right? You've got expansion, a growing economy, and contraction, a shrinking economy. Round and round they go. Anyway, just because we're not really talking about it doesn't mean economists aren't looking out for a recession. And there are a ton of ways they do try to figure out when one might be coming. Recession predictors, you might call them. Some of them track imports, some track wholesale prices, some actually track light truck sales and Statue of Liberty visits. Separately, not together. We talked yesterday about one of the big ones, the SOM rule that tracks the unemployment rate. Today, we go to an entirely different part of the economy, the market for U.S. Treasury bonds. It is big, very big, $27 trillion big. It's also global, and it's been worrying people for more than a year now. Specifically, we're talking here about the yield curve, which tracks the yields, the interest rates, being paid on U.S. government bonds. Marketplace's Stacey Vanek-Smith has the second now of two stories.
The yield curve. It was identified as a recession predictor back in the 80s by Duke economist Campbell Harvey. And Harvey says at its heart, the yield curve is really very simple.
The theory behind this indicator is very straightforward, Econ 101.
So let's start with the yield part, aka bond yields. Bonds are like little loans you give the government. And these loans have different durations. Some are 4 weeks, some are 3 months, some are 10 years. Looking at you, 10-year T-note. And when the time comes, the government pays you back for that loan, plus a little interest. And that interest is called the yield. And it's different depending on the term of the bond. So like a 5-year loan?
That's got a higher rate than for 90 days.
It's the basic laws of FOMO. When the economy's cooking, investors want to have cash on hand to buy NVIDIA stock or splurge on a Tesla Cybertruck. So the government has to pay a higher interest rate for those years of lost opportunities.
That's the usual yield curve.
So we've covered the yield part. Next up, the curve. So if you laid these bonds out in order of duration, 4 weeks, 1 year, 10 years, and plotted out their interest rates, their yields, in a healthy economy, you should see a curve, right? Shorter term loans, smaller payout. Longer term loans, bigger payout. And if you converted those interest rates into musical notes and played them, the yield curve should sound something like this, as played on the cello by my editor, Amanda Peacher. But lately, the yield curve has been singing a different tune.
Short-term rates are higher than long-term rates. So something must be going wrong.
Right now, the government is paying people more to borrow their money for 4 weeks than for 10 years, which is weird, right? I mean, shouldn't the government have to pay you for 10 years of no Tesla truck? What is going on?
When there's economic uncertainty, people go into the safest asset in the world, and that's the U.S. 10-year Treasury bond.
So people stop caring about FOMO and start caring about safety. They want to stash their money somewhere and not worry about it for a long time. And because demand is high, the government then does not have to pay as much interest to investors for those long-term bonds. And that is what is happening right now. So remember, here is what the yield curve is supposed to sound like. And here is today's yield curve. This is the song of the inverted yield curve, and it is a bad economic omen. But it's also been singing this tune for 20 months. So where's the recession?
So the yield curve is a leading indicator.
With a very long lead. The yield curve typically inverts between 6 months and 2 years before a recession begins.
I think we're on the edge of a slowdown that could lead to a recession in the fourth quarter of 24 or the first quarter of 25. But there's reasons to believe that it's a soft landing recession.
Soft landing recession, meaning a few months of mild economic slowdown and then a pretty fast recovery. And the reason for this potentially mild recession, says Harvey, the recession indicators themselves. They've given companies a chance to prepare.
If there's a recession, this would be the most anticipated recession. And we've actually seen actions.
Actions like slowing down expansion plans, or even doing what Harvey calls preventative layoffs, slimming down staff, cutting unprofitable departments.
You might think, well, is that a bad thing? I don't think so. Think of the alternative. We go into a recession, and then these companies need to slash. So instead of this 10% layoff, they slash 40% because they're struggling for survival. And many don't survive, like we saw in the global financial crisis. So this is a trade-off.
In other words, Harvey says, the song the yield curve has been singing for the last 20 months has slowed the economy down. But it's also possibly saved us from a much more severe recession. In New York, I'm Stacey Bannock Smith for Marketplace.
Justin Ho is telling us about some of the things troubling American consumers right now up at the top of the program. But forget not American businesses, because they have troubles of their own. So we got one of our regulars on the phone to hear how things are going on the other side of the retail counter. Here's Kristen Thalheimer-Bingham. She's the co-owner of Dean's Sweets in Portland, Maine.
The big news in our world continues to be the rising cost of chocolate. The whole thing is astounding to watch, partly because this has been predicted for years, and now it's finally really happening. The price of chocolate went up in 2023, and then it climbed by 25% in the first half of this year, and then leapt up another 20% in August for dark chocolate and 40% for milk and white chocolate. There is no sign that these prices are stabilizing. So to get some stability for ourselves, we've done our best to purchase as much chocolate as we possibly can. So that way we lock in a price as low as possible. And then we've purchased enough to get us through the end of the year, maybe a little bit more, but we're not able to afford purchasing more than that. So we'll just have to face those costs next year and assess the situation yet again.
Let's find a new route.
We've had a major win recently, major to us anyway, which is that we've finally been able to hire a full-time person. We've been looking to hire somebody since February, and we've had a lot of challenges. For us, it's mostly dealing with a lack of qualified candidates that are also interested in working in a retail setting. And I get that that can be a pretty tough sell. So I'm very happy and relieved to say that we've got our team together for an amazing upcoming fall and holiday season.
Kristen Thalheimer-Bingham. She's the co-owner of Dean's Sweets in Portland, Maine. Coming up.
You're going to get up and you're going to step on this towel. Let me know if you need a hand.
Spoiler alert, I definitely did. First, though, let's do the numbers. Dow Industrial's up 235 points today, just shy of 0.6%, 41,096. The NASDAQ gained 174 points, 1%. 17,569. The S&P 500 gained 41 points, 0.75%, 55 and 95 there. Right. Price of gold hit another all-time high today, over $2,500 American dollars an ounce. In gold mining stocks then, Newmont dug up 4 2/10% today. Barrick Gold found 4 1/4%. Bond prices fell. Yield on the 10-year T-note went up 3.68%. You're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform.
Turn left.
Marketplace is supported by Babbel for Business. With over 13,000 hours of language courses, live instructor-led classes, and business-specific content, Babbel is helping companies break down language barriers and improve workplace safety. Learn more at babbelforbusiness.com. And by C3 Generative AI. C3 Generative AI enables rapid access to secure, traceable, hallucination-free insights from enterprise systems, all while using any LLM, helping enterprises turn the invisible into the obvious. C3.ai. This is enterprise AI. And by the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, a nonpartisan organization dedicated to raising awareness and accelerating action on America's fiscal challenges to build a brighter economic future for the next generation. Learn more at pgpf.org.
At 6:45, you're listening to News Hit 87.
An area drive-in theater rolls its final credits this weekend, while Houston City Council gets an earful about sidewalks. I'm Craig Cohen. Our non-expert panel weighs in on intrigues in the news, on the good, the bad, and the ugly, on the next Houston Matters.
Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And on the freeway, still have the problem on the Katy Freeway, eastbound I-10 heading in at the West Sam. 2 right lanes taken up with the wreck. You're in for about a 20-minute trip from Eldridge to the West Sam.
Go straight on.
Support comes from Baylor College of Medicine, creating tomorrow's medicine today. Known for their medical research and innovation, Baylor pushes boundaries through health discoveries and their pursuit to improve the health of humankind. Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to McGovern Medical School and Dr. Charles Cox, who is focused on reversing brain damage with his patient's own stem cells. More about the many faces of UT Health Houston at uth.edu/manyfaces.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Risdall. I've spent the better part of a year or so working on something a little different, something more personal than what I usually do. All right, we're rolling?
Do you want to give us a self-ID first?
Sure.
Go straight
My
on.
name is Kai Risdall, and I'm the host and senior editor of Marketplace. That's producers Haley Hirschman and Caitlin Esch putting me through my paces.
And before that?
How far back are we going?
To the 80s?
Oh, my God. So, to the 80s. If you listen to this show, or if you follow me on social media, you know a little something about me. I live in L.A. I've got 4 kids. I'm a beer guy. Hazy IPAs only. Thank you very much. And you might have heard me mention that I'm a veteran. I spent 8 years in the Navy, flying and then on staff duty at the Pentagon. I went to officer candidate school right after college. Graduation was June-ish of '85. 2 weeks later, I threw everything I owned in the trunk of my car, and I drove from Atlanta down to Pensacola, Florida, and I did 14 weeks of boot camp.
Do you have any first day memories?
Oh, yeah. You know, there's spit and polish everywhere, right? I mean, it's ship-shape and all of that jazz. You walk up, you open these doors, and you are immediately greeted by the officer candidates who are in their last week of training. But they start yelling and screaming at you about assuming the position of tension, and you get assigned to a room, Spartan military accommodation, obviously, single bed, single closet, and you're getting to know people, and it comes time to turn out the lights. And then the next morning at 5 o'clock is when you meet your drill instructor. And the way I met Gunnery Sergeant Holter, United States Marine Corps, was that at 5 o'clock in the morning, he grabbed the trash can, and these hallways are linoleum tile and really echoey. He grabs a trash can and he throws it down the hallway. Get your ass out of bed, goddamn it, right now! Get your foot on the ground right now! You know, all of that. I can't do it justice, but that's kind of what it sounds like. And you scramble out of bed, and you go out the door, and you line up at the position of attention, and you start doing whatever Gunnery Sergeant Holter, United States Marine Corps, tells you to do, literally for the next 14 weeks.
How'd you feel?
I guess it was some combination of terrified and excited, right? It's all physicality and following orders and breaking you down. First couple of 3 days, we all hung in. And then the day we got our heads shaved, like 3 guys bailed after they got their head shaved. And I'm like, are you serious? I was like, what are you even doing?
Reflecting on those moments, what do you make of that training and all those?
So look, I think, and again, I think you see this in me to this day, right? Discipline, willpower, grind it out, keep your head down, and do your job.
Is there any of that you wish you could unlearn?
No.
No?
Not a thing. Not a thing, right? I mean, this is going to sound dopey, and I keep saying this, it is what made me what I am today, right? Of all the formative experiences in my life, right? Being a father, being a husband, having this job, that job is what made me.
Why do you think you stuck it out?
I wanted it, and I'm stubborn, and quitting would have been horrible, and what would I have done? But it was rapidly becoming part of who I am. It was becoming my identity, right? And here we are 40 years later, and it's still, I mean, you can see this, right? It's a little touchy for me to talk about what it means to me.
What was the political vibe at the time? What did you think that you would be fighting or protecting?
So remember, this was 85, 86, the evil empire, right? Ronald Reagan was in the White House, and it was the Soviet Union. It literally was the evil empire and the Cold War and Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev and all of that.
At what point, if at all, did you hear about climate change?
Not once, not ever. Not once, not ever. It wasn't something that trickled down to the troops. The Pentagon's been funding research into global warming for decades now, as far back as the 1950s. And yet today, the American military belches out more greenhouse gases than any other institution in the world. That's what this reporting project is all about. The new season of our climate podcast, How We Survive. How the institution that shaped me is also going to shape our climate future. The Department of Defense is partly responsible for the climate crisis. But here's the thing. The military's also on the front lines, so to speak, of having to deal with the fallout. Climate change is a threat to national security. The White House and the Secretary of Defense say that outright. The Biden administration has promised to completely decarbonize the federal government, the Pentagon obviously included, by 2050. So what does that mean for how the military trains, and how the military fights, and how it completes its mission?
All right, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I am taking an ingestible core temperature sensor. And now I'm going to have some coffee.
Ingestible core temperature sensor is just what it sounds like, a giant pill with a thermometer inside. But for me, it's not just a pill. It's my ticket into this place.
We are going inside to the Warfighter Performance Lab here.
Pay no attention. Forgot with the microphone. We're on a Navy base in San Diego, California. Captain Eric Welsh is the commanding officer of the Naval Health Research Center.
This is where we do physiological and cognitive studies on our warfighters to optimize their performance and increase their resilience.
In other words, warfighters, mostly young Marines, come into the lab and do both physical and mental stress tests under what might fairly be called extreme conditions. Doug Jones is the head of the thermal physiology team.
This environmental chamber goes from negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 135. So we can really run the whole gamut here, but we're gonna drop it from 110 degrees Fahrenheit down to 34 degrees Fahrenheit. We're also gonna get you wet and cold too. So you'll be going through a lot of different things today.
Oh my God, all right, okay, all right. I'm here because I wanna understand what soldiers are facing today. Living and working and fighting in temperatures and environments that are only getting tougher. Environments that are hotter or colder and with less access to water. And I want to know how research like this could help train them.
And take a seat.
This is just a remarkable feeling, the whole guinea pig lab rat thing. Doug takes me into a bare metal box for the first test, extreme heat. Oh yeah, it's hot. Oh, it's 110 degrees thanks to a bank of red warming lamps up in the ceiling. This is like being in one of those food stations where they put the freaking chickens in the grocery store. There's these IR lamps, right? Isn't that what's going on? I walk on a treadmill in that heat for a solid 30 minutes, got a little sweaty, and then I do a cognitive test to see how the heat affects my ability to function. On the face of it, it's a simple exercise. I have to differentiate between O's and Q's. How to keep a Q. God, that was a Q. Computer's wrong.
Nice work.
The whole while I'm doing that, there's a room full of scientists tracking my data. That temperature pill I swallowed is like a tiny computer in my gut. It records and stores 34 hours worth of my core temperature data. So, of course, after the heat test, I get to experience the other extreme. Doug drops that room down to 34 degrees. And after standing there for 10 minutes in shorts and a t-shirt, it's 10 minutes in a tub of 50-degree water. Whenever you're ready.
The more you talk, the less I'm doing this.
All right, so, right away, it's not great.
Ooh, I can feel my muscles tensing, right? My thigh muscles are very tense right now. Mostly because I'm jamming them together.
So what's going on right now is basically your cold temperature receptors are responding.
Yes, they are. Sorry.
And so you are feeling intense sensations of cold, probably some pain, I'd imagine. Do you want to know the time or no?
No, absolutely not.
So you can think about all the Marines that have gone before you in this.
Oh, I don't understand doing this for 90 minutes. I bet you get deep inside yourself.
After what were, honestly, 10 of the longest minutes of my life,
You're going to get up and you're going to step on this towel.
even standing up is difficult.
Let me know if you need a hand.
Dripping wet, still in that bare metal room, still at 34 degrees, it's time for the next stress test. Can you hear the gun shaking? It's been 38 years, not since boot camp, since I shot a weapon. But with a laser-modified M4 rifle in my hands,
oh, come on, Kai.
I take aim at a figure that appears on a snowy mountain landscape on a wall-sized screen. Definitely cannot feel my fingers anymore. There is, mercifully, a hot shower waiting for me, although the shaking and the shivering continue for a good long while as the thermal team and I go over my results.
All right, so we're going to walk you through your data that you produce here in both the hot and cold environments.
I did all right overall, better in the cold than in the warm, funnily enough. But it's not really about my results. This whole day is about getting just a glimpse of what soldiers and Marines are going to have to be training for in the future. Because climate change is changing where and how the military operates. Hot or hot, cold or cold, in unexpected parts of the world. Here's Captain Eric Welsh one more time.
You can be on a ship and be too cold. You can be on a ship and be too hot. So the climate of the world today, the global climate, offers many, many different conditions that really put people at stress.
In other words, the changes are already happening.
Humans are not meant to work in really cold conditions or hot conditions, and you know that's true right now. We operate from the Middle East to the Arctic and all over the world.
This is what we've been doing for the past year or so. Going, if not quite all over the world, then definitely far and wide, trying to understand what climate change is going to mean for America's national security. Because the conditions and the consequences of how the Pentagon operates in a warming world are only going to be getting more extreme. I don't take myself off the air to do big projects like this very often. I love my day job. I say that all the time. But this one was different. It needed more time than I get in the standard broadcast clock for this show. And it needed me to be more me. We're going to have more segments coming up on the air over the next month or so. But in the meanwhile, please do follow our climate podcast, How We Survive, obviously on the platform of your choice. Episode 1, Me, the Military, and How Climate Change is a Threat Multiplier, is out now.
Marketplace is supported by Amazon Business, focused on offering smart business buying solutions, leading time to focus on growth. More at AmazonBusiness.com.
And we are out of here. John Buckley, John Gordon, Maya Carr, Diana Parker, Amanda Peter, and Stephanie Seek are the Marketplace editing staff. Amir Babawe is the managing editor. I'm Kai Rizdal. We will see you tomorrow.
It's a minute before 7 on the evening before Friday on your NPR station, News 88.7. One last look at the drive home eastbound I-10 heading in Katy Freeway. That's unwinding pretty well from a wreck at the West Sam that cleared about 10 minutes ago.
Support comes from Comcast Business, partnering with companies to help keep their business moving by offering a network of cybersecurity solutions and round-the-clock support. Powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. ComcastBusiness.com.
We're about half an hour away from sunset. Clear overnight with a low around 72. Tomorrow's sunrise at 7:05. We'll have an ozone action day in effect by the by. Sunny day in store tomorrow again with highs right around 91 to 93, lows in the mid-70s, and it will be that way all the way through next Thursday at the very least. Nary a mention of rain in the forecast. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.7, service of the University of Houston, 7 o'clock.
The idea of giving U.S. steel away to a Japanese company and letting that happen is something that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I think the potential ramifications of that and the fact that the union and labor, which is so powerful and so important, particularly in election year, is against it is something that's really hard to avoid.
I'm Sabrina Tavernisi. That's coming up on The Daily from the New York Times.
The Daily is supported by BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy and helping clients find balance. Clients are matched with one of 35,000 therapists for online therapy from anywhere at BetterHelp.com/public.
Keep left.
And by Progressive Insurance. The Name Your Price tool provides a range of coverage options. Progressive.com. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And by American Public Media.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. A judge is dismissing 3 more counts in the Georgia election interference case against former President Donald Trump and his allies. But in a separate ruling, the judge upheld the bedrock charge in the indictment, racketeering. WABE Sam Greenglass reports from Atlanta.
These 3 counts all have to do with filing false documents to a federal court. Trump was charged with 2 of those 3. The charges were dismissed on account of the supremacy clause of the Constitution, which says state law must yield to federal law when the 2 conflict. Earlier this year, the judge dismissed 6 other counts in the indictment. That still leaves 32 felony counts. For many defendants, including Trump, the case is paused amid appeals over whether District Attorney Fani Willis can stay on the case following misconduct allegations. So the counts in question won't actually be dropped for those defendants until after their cases resume. For NPR News, I'm Sam Greenglass in Atlanta.
New York City Police Commissioner Edward Caban has announced he is stepping down today. Caban made the announcement just a week after his phone was taken as part of a federal investigation. People familiar with the matter say the commissioner was one of several high-ranking city officials whose electronic devices were seized last week by federal investigators. The investigation is being led by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, and it's believed to be just one of 4 federal investigations into the administration of Mayor Eric Adams. It's not immediately clear whether federal authorities are seeking information on one investigation or several. Lawyers are accusing Florida officials of interfering with the November election by actively opposing a ballot measure to expand abortion rights. The proposed constitutional amendment would allow abortions until viability or when a patient's health provider deems necessary. Stephanie Colombini of member station WUSF reports the state Supreme Court is reviewing one lawsuit, and the ACLU was also sued.
At issue are a website and video state health officials produced about the amendment. The site claims the measure threatens women's safety and says don't let the fearmongers lie to you. Keisha Mulford with the ACLU of Florida supports the amendment. She says the state's unlawfully using its resources to mislead voters.
Extreme politicians are terrified of the power of our voices because they know they can't win on a level playing field.
Governor Ron DeSantis says the website is meant to provide accurate information. Conservatives in some other states with abortion measures on the ballot are also putting up roadblocks ahead of the election. For NPR News, I'm Stephanie Colombini in Tampa.
Members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers at Boeing are voting today on whether to approve a tentative contract deal, offer 25% pay increase over 4 years. If workers reject the contract, a work stoppage involving 33,000 aircraft assembly workers could begin at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time. You're listening to NPR. After leaving upwards of 450,000 customers without power and sending some people to emergency shelters, Francine is now a tropical depression. But as the sun came up in Louisiana today, the extent of the damage became clear. Francine came ashore yesterday as a Category 2 hurricane with 100-mile-an-hour winds, sending storm surge into some coastal communities. There were no immediate reports, though, of deaths or injuries. The World Health Organization says a mass polio vaccination campaign in Gaza is coming to an end. NPR's Fatma Tanis reports more than 552,000 children in Gaza received an oral polio vaccine as of today.
Last month, the first case of polio in Gaza was confirmed in a 10-month-old child who became paralyzed. Authorities feared the virus would continue spreading in the territory and even possibly into Egypt and Israel. Israel and Hamas agreed to humanitarian pauses to allow for the distribution of the vaccines. Dr. Richard Peppercorn, who is the WHO's representative for the occupied Palestinian territories, says the response to the campaign among families in Gaza was heartening.
Everywhere the team has gone, parents are doing all they can to ensure that child does not miss the vaccination.
Officials say now there will be negotiations for another humanitarian pause to allow for the second phase of the vaccination campaign, which they are planning to start in 4 weeks. Fatma Tanis, NPR News.
A magnitude 4.7 earthquake rattled the Los Angeles area this morning. The quake knocked some boulders onto Malibu Road and shook Santa Monica's famous pier. There are no reports of any major damage or injuries, though. You're listening to NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BritBox, working to help people discover British dramas and mysteries, including The Responder, starring Martin Freeman, and entire series like Sherlock and Vera. Streaming at BritBox.com/NPR.
From the New York Times, I'm Sabrina Tavernisi, and this is The Daily. In a highly unusual move last week, the Biden administration signaled that it would block a Japanese company from buying an iconic American company in a critical swing state. Today, my colleague Alan Rappaport on the politics that could do a multi-billion-dollar deal and what it says about the new power of American labor. It's Thursday, September 12th. So, Alan, there's been this really interesting standoff over the potential acquisition of U.S. Steel. And now the sale is in jeopardy. So help us understand why this is important.
Well, there's a really fascinating dynamic going on here. We have a historic American company that was once the largest company in the whole United States, and now it's on the brink of being bought by a Japanese company called Nippon Steel. And so a lot of people, including workers, the union, lawmakers, are not happy about this at all. And last week, we got word that President Biden was actually preparing to go ahead and block this deal, which in a lot of ways was pretty surprising.
And why is that surprising?
Normally, presidents don't go ahead and interfere in foreign acquisitions like this, especially ones that are between a U.S. company and countries that are allies. But as we all know, we're in an election year, and this is not a normal year. So the potential to block this deal is really about a lot more than just the company U.S. Steel. The company's located in Pennsylvania, which is going to be a really important swing state in the upcoming November election that could actually end up determining who wins the whole thing. Second of all, culturally, it's important because of the way the company's story is interwoven with the history of America and the history of American labor itself.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Explain a bit of that history.
Well, it all started around the turn of the 20th century. 1901, these industrialists like Andrew Carnegie and J.P. Morgan come together to form U.S. Steel. The company actually was the first billion-dollar company in the United States. It was known for building some of the most famous bridges and skyscrapers, and some of its steel was even used in the United Nations building.
Oh, wow.
And its employment actually peaked around World War II when it had 340,000 or so workers.
So really a company that just in some ways like embodied, American power and American greatness in an era where that was really on the ascent.
Exactly. After World War II, however, a lot of that started to change. The company had gotten so big, but it had also become kind of complacent. By then, Germany and Japan were sort of starting their steel industries from scratch with a lot of new technology that was more advanced than what U.S. Steel was making. And U.S. Steel was actually kind of slow to adopt a lot of these innovations. And by the 1960s and the 1970s, there had been some labor strife within U.S. Steel. There had been shutdowns of mills. And the U.S. was finally starting to see a flood of imports from other countries around the world. And it had been pushing hard on the United States government to impose some trade restrictions and tariffs to prevent this flood of foreign steel from totally upending its business. And that was really what started an era of protectionism in the United States. And over the next decade or so, when China eventually started to ramp up its own steel production, that really posed a major threat to the industry and to the company. We saw the U.S. Steel workforce really start to shrink at that point. From 1979, when it had about 170,000 workers, to 1995, it was down to about 20,000 workers, where it is right now. And in Pennsylvania, where it's headquartered, there's only about 4,000 workers left.
So how does this company, that's really just a shell of its former self, wind up where it is now as this key talking point smack dab in the middle of the American presidential race?
Well, a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Who, in his first election campaign back in 2016...
We're 30 miles from Steel City. Pittsburgh played a central role in building our nation.
Really put a big focus on the American worker.
But our workers' loyalty was repaid, you know it better than anybody, with total betrayal.
Steel workers, mining workers, who he said, had been left behind by Republicans and Democrats for decades.
Our politicians have aggressively pursued a policy of globalization, moving our jobs, our wealth, and our factories to Mexico and overseas.
He blamed a lot of this on trade deals that had been written by both Republicans and Democratic administrations. And he said he was going to tear those up, make better deals, and he was going to make, American steelworkers great again.
The politicians have proven, folks, they do nothing. For years, they watched on the sidelines as our jobs vanished and our communities were plunged into depression-level unemployment. Many of these areas have still never recovered and never will unless I become president.
And when he took office, he started imposing big tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from around the world. He said, if you don't have steel, you don't have a country. And Democrats were really forced to start embracing these kinds of populist policies as well.
Right. Trump really put his finger on something important politically. Does U.S. Steel ever recover? I mean, you said that Trump put tariffs on imports, so did that help?
It helped for a while and gave the company some breathing room. The company got a bump just after the pandemic when there was a surge in demand for steel, but that didn't last very long. Profits started declining over the last couple of years. The company's stock price had been flat, and shareholders had been starting to get frustrated. And last year, some of its rivals started to see U.S. Steel as a target. In August, a company called Cleveland Cliffs, which is based in Ohio, put in a bid for the company that was unsolicited. But U.S. Steel didn't like it, and that started this whole situation where other companies also started making bids for U.S. Steel. And then in December, Nippon Steel, which is the fourth largest steel company in the world and is based in Japan, put in a $15 billion offer for U.S. Steel, which they accepted. So the deal was announced, and the company thought it was a big premium for U.S. Steel. They promised to keep the headquarters in Pittsburgh, invest in plants, and bring a lot of new technology that U.S. Steel didn't have. But the union felt blindsided, and they quickly came out against it and said, we don't support this deal.
So what does the union say about it? Why did it not like the deal?
Well, when you hear the union leaders talk about their issues with it...
Jackson joining us now, David McCall, United Steelworkers Union International President. David.
They list several problems. Some of them are more nuanced than just the fact that it's a Japanese company.
And U.S. Steel's been shutting down steelmaking capacity in this country over the last several years.
They don't trust the fact that Nippon is actually going to not lay off workers.
What makes it so insincere is they make a statement, there'll be no layoffs, there'll be no plant closures. But in our discussions with them, they say there'll be no plant closures, there'll be no layoffs unless there's a business plan change.
And they're concerned about what might happen once their existing contract ends.
And for our members, it's making sure that it is a domestic owner that continues to be able to backstop not only our labor agreements, but our pension plans, our retiree health care plans, and to make sure...
They don't trust the fact that, a lot of the benefits that they currently have are actually going to continue into the future.
And Alan, are there grounds for the union to think that? Is that true?
It's hard to say. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that they felt blindsided and not looped into the fact that this deal was happening or the management was going to accept it. There was definitely a lot of mistrust between the union and management that's been festering over the last few years. Union leaders have been saying that this is really just a ploy by the chief executive of U.S. Steel to get a big payout or golden parachute, as they say it, when a company changes control to another company. And so while a lot of these issues have been sort of bubbling up under the surface for a while, the union's lobbying against the deal has really been ramping up and intensifying as the election has been drawing closer. And the big question is whether or not all this political pressure is going to work.
We'll be right back.
The Daily is supported by JLL, committed to finding smarter ways to tackle business goals with commercial real estate solutions, talent retention, hitting sustainability goals, or simply helping find the place for your business to grow. JLL.com. JLL, see a brighter way. Listeners of The Daily, get to the heart of the stories shaping the world. For more on today's episode, go to nytimes.com/thedaily. Distribution of The Daily is made possible by American Public Media. APM produces and distributes programs that entertain and engage audiences everywhere.
This is News 88.7.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, do traditional media companies and social media companies like X and Meta have too much sway in our elections? After all, the owner of X, Elon Musk, has already endorsed Donald Trump and has the power of the algorithm which determines what you see. Call 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353 to join the conversation. Next time on The Middle.
Later tonight at 8 o'clock here on News 88.7.
U.S. prosecutors say a company called Tenet Media was infiltrated by Russian operatives and used to flood social media with propaganda. The founders and directors of the company are Canadian, and so are a number of online right-wing influencers. How Russia uses social media to influence public opinion, and Canada's outsized role in the world of disinformation. This week on Day 6.
Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock and Sunday morning at 11 here on News 88.7.
In a highly unusual move last week, the Biden administration signaled that it would block a Japanese company from buying an iconic American company in a critical swing state. my colleague Alan Rappaport on the politics that could doom a multi-billion-dollar deal and what it says about the new power of American labor. So after the deal is announced, the union starts applying political pressure to prevent Nippon Steel from buying U.S. steel. What happens? How do we see that play out?
So almost immediately after the deal was announced in December, there was political pushback, outrage was bubbling up. You were hearing from all kinds of politicians across the political spectrum that this deal should not go through. Democratic Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania came out against it. Pennsylvania State Governor Josh Shapiro expressed concerns. J.D. Vance came out saying that the deal, needed to be blocked. But at the presidential level,
we saved the steel industry. Now, U.S. Steel is being bought by Japan.
Donald Trump was the first to make a move coming out against the deal.
I would block it. I think it's a horrible thing. When Japan buys U.S. Steel, I would block it instantaneously, absolutely.
And his comments put direct pressure on Biden, who was still a candidate at the time. And he had to say something about U.S. Steel.
U.S. Steel has been an iconic American company for more than a century, and it should remain a totally American company.
He's billed himself as the most pro-union president ever. And by the spring, Biden finally comes out in support of the steelworkers.
American owned, American operated by American union steelworkers, the best in the world. And that's going to happen, I promise you.
But of course, Biden drops out of the race, and Vice President Harris becomes the Democratic nominee.
When unions are strong, America is strong. And we will continue to strengthen America's manufacturing sector.
And then she goes ahead and adopts Biden's position on the merger. To drive that point home, she says it at a rally in Pittsburgh on Labor Day.
U.S. Steel should remain American-owned and American-operated. And I will always have the back of America's steelworkers.
So it's kind of this funny situation where all the candidates, Trump, Biden, and Harris, all agree on a policy.
Right. There's this kind of arms race for who can actually show American workers in the state that they have their interests at heart the most.
Exactly. I mean, it really shows how labor and steel have become the sort of political poster child in this election. And so that's what set off this protracted standoff, and it's really put U.S. Steel in a difficult situation, trying to figure out what they're going to do with this Nippon bid and figure out whether or not it's going to go forward.
So on the national stage, we're seeing the presidential candidates really compete for the steelworkers' vote, which makes sense because they need Pennsylvania to win. Biden has actually gone a step further, signaling that he will block the deal. But at this point, he's no longer in the race. So why is he doing this? And how is he justifying this intervention?
So even though Biden's out of the race, he still wants Harris to win, and he's clearly hoping to give Democrats a leg up with this move. And so the means by which he's going to potentially block the deal has to do with this shadowy interagency panel known as CFIUS, which is the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. Kind of a mouthful.
Indeed.
It's kind of an obscure panel made up of cabinet officials across the government, and it's led by the Treasury Department. It reviews foreign acquisitions of sensitive companies, infrastructure, all kinds of things that might potentially pose a threat to the United States. And it has the power to make recommendations to block these transactions.
And Alan, what's the implication here? Because, of course, Japan is an important ally to the United States, specifically regarding China, which, of course, is an adversary. So it's very interesting and kind of odd that a Japanese company would be seen as a security threat.
Go straight on.
Have they actually said anything about what the concerns actually are?
Not publicly. The potential national security concerns that they might raise are the idea that Japan or a Japanese company getting a hold of U.S. steel could potentially jeopardize, the security of the U.S. steel sector more broadly, and that that's an issue if there was sort of a national emergency crisis and the United States needed steel for various reasons. I think there's also been a more broadly considered view of national security and economic security and how they're defined, and the idea that this could erode the U.S. industrial base if something happens to this company is also something that they might say is, a reason to block the deal.
So what does U.S. Steel say about all of this?
So They've continued to defend the logic of the deal, saying that they don't see any national security threats. This is going to be good for workers in Pennsylvania, and that Nippon Steel really is the only option for allowing them to continue to invest in Pennsylvania. But they've also been giving some other indications that if it doesn't go through, there could be some repercussions for Pennsylvania steelworkers. They've suggested that there could be plant closures, layoffs, and that they might even consider relocating out of the state so they can focus on some of their plants in the South where they don't have to rely on union labor. And so a lot of people in Pennsylvania see this as a threat, and they're not happy about the fact that U.S. Steel is raising the specter of leaving if this deal gets blocked.
Interesting. A U.S. Steel leaving Pennsylvania would be a really bad thing for the state and for those workers. But how likely is this to happen if Nippon Steel doesn't buy this company?
It's hard to know if they're bluffing or not, but I think it is definitely a possibility. I think, the company definitely does not like the idea of the federal government interfering with some sort of free market transaction. If it does happen, it most likely would happen after the election. Obviously, the union is not particularly happy, but there's also the possibility that Nippon will live up to their word, make these big investments in Pennsylvania, potentially reopen some of these idle plants in the Midwest, and potentially revive U.S. Steel.
And what if it doesn't go through?
Well, that'll be the most interesting situation. I think you'll probably see other companies, potentially Cleveland-Cliffs or others that made the initial bids for U.S. Steel, try to get back in the game. I think there will be a lot of backlash from different quarters, particularly Japan. We've already heard from some lawmakers in Japan saying it really makes no sense for the United States to move forward and block this deal and that it's not justified. Other U.S. allies will definitely be raising their eyebrows as well, particularly ones where the United States is often preaching open markets and the necessity of that. I think it'll make it harder for the United States to be able to make that case. But I think it definitely will raise some questions for potential foreign investors who want to invest in Pennsylvania or in other potentially politically sensitive states or sectors, whether or not they should actually move forward with those deals because they might get blocked.
So, Alan, is it possible that this whole move by Biden could just backfire? Like in his scramble to show that he's all for American ownership and Team USA, he ends up hurting the very workers he's trying to protect and the very swing state he's trying to win?
There's definitely that possibility. There's a lot of potential trade-offs that have to be weighed here and a lot of potential reverberations that could happen depending on what he does and if the deal is blocked. And I think that really puts the Biden administration in a difficult position where they have to weigh the possibility that, in trying to help these workers and keep this company American-owned and in Pennsylvania, in the longer term, they may end up costing jobs in the state that they're trying to help. On the other hand, I think the short-term politics are really difficult to resist, and those forces are really strong. The idea of giving U.S. Steel away to a Japanese company and letting that happen is something that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I think the potential ramifications of that and the fact that the union and labor, which is so powerful and so important, particularly in election year, is against it is something that's really hard to avoid.
Alan, thank you.
Thanks very much.
On Wednesday, CEOs of Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel met with representatives from over half a dozen U.S. government agencies in a last-ditch effort to save the $15 billion deal.
Turn left.
The Daily is supported by Betterment, the automated investing platform that helps make it easy to be invested. Learn more at betterment.com. Investing involves risk. For everything you need to know about the most important stories of the day, you're listening to The Daily from The New York Times, distributed by American Public Media. APM produces and distributes programs that inform and inspire, entertain, and engage audiences everywhere.
The Daily is powered by the journalism of The New York Times and is distributed by APM, American Public Media. You can go deeper into the stories you hear on The Daily by going to nytimes.com/The Daily. That's it for The Daily. I'm Sabrina Tavernise. See you tomorrow.
Next time on Climate One, collective action can be one healthy way to cope with anxiety around climate change and the coming election.
Knowing that you are not the center of whatever you're doing, that you're doing it for people and for future generations, that has a huge impact on maybe lessening this.
Go straight on. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. At the roundabout, take the first exit. It's all over now. roundabout, take the second exit. Exit now. Ready to turn left. Turn left. Go straight on. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left. Keep left. right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left. Keep left. Keep left. left. Keep left. Keep left. Keep left. Keep left. Keep left. right, and then exit right. Exit right. Go straight on. Keep right, and then exit right. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Turn right. Get ready to turn left. Turn left. Here we are, safe and sound. Okay, here we go. Rerouting. Turn right. Get ready to turn left. Turn left, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Keep left, and then exit left. Exit left. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left. Keep left. Keep right, and then exit right. Exit right. Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Keep left. Keep right, and then exit right. Exit right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time is 9:14. I'm in San Antonio right now. That concludes our trucks back for the night. So, thank you for talking with me this evening. And, guys, have a good night. Thank you. Oh, I'm still well.
Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn left. Turn left. You have arrived at your destination. Your route guidance is now finished.